Today we're meeting with Mark Armstrong, a doctor of Chinese medicine, a Qigong master, definitely a community hero, and my dear friend for the last 20 years, Dr. Mark Armstrong. I met Mark a year or so before my father died of Alzheimer's. I met Mark a year or so before my father died of Alzheimer's. I heard about him at a Qigong yoga class. I was trying anything I could find to hang on. Nothing seemed to be working, and my anxiety was through the roof, and I could barely function. I was desperate. So, alternative medicine, Mark, is a mystery to most people and very hard to put into concrete terms. So, today with you, we're going to start breaking it down. You don't want to miss one of the greatest healing options out there because you weren't quite sure what it is exactly. So first, Mark, why don't you tell us your story and how did you get interested in healing and why alternative methods?
Well, thank you, Lee. It's a really honor to be with you. We met over 20 years ago in a class, Don Yoga, and it was great being part of the journey and assisting you after your father's transition. And so, one of the things that I want to say is, like you, I was challenged with a lot of stress and toxins as a kid. I had asthma. And I had the type of asthma that led to psoriasis. Anywhere there was a bend, there was cracks and bleeding. And every night, pretty much asthma attacks. The inhalers were not working. Finally, my mom decided, this is enough. We're going to spend some time with your grandfather. And he was an herbalist. So he took a look at me and he decided to take me off of milk, take me off of gluten, and all wheat products, and within 2 months I could breathe. I had no idea that I was lactose intolerant, that I had sensitivities to dairy and to wheat and gluten. And that's what started my journey. Every summer from that point on, I was with him and learning more about health than I ever learned going to the emergency room. And that got my interest. I wanted to do something to honor the natural part of healing, which is what helped me heal, and that put me on this path.
I didn't know that. So when someone asks you what you do,
Mhm.
what do you tell them?
I share with them that I practice naturopathic medicine, that I take a look at their case history, the case history of their parents. I want to know, about their mother and father and their sisters and brothers and what they eat and what allergies that they may have, and I start there. I also like to look and see what stress they have been under because the mental and emotional body closely follows the physical body. The part that was also healing was being away from my home every summer. It gave me a chance to reflect and get away from some of the grind of having a very militaristic stepfather and a mother that was smother love. Couldn't play out on the grass, couldn't work out hard, couldn't do anything really. And of course, they were up all night trying to figure out how to get me to breathe. So stress was part of it to some degree. And I learned how to relax and be in nature, which healed me. Being out in the country, in the woods, fresh air, getting up early in the morning, and doing things, chores, having activities, structure, really did a lot for my health.
Wow, you did 180 degrees. I mean, I don't know what drove you, but I know that it was something inside of you.
Yes. Yeah, I wanted to play. I was the littlest kid in my neighborhood, and the boys, the big boys, played football, and I would just have to watch. I wanted to play. I had watched their game, and so when I was getting healthier, I knew what moves they made. I figured out how not to be afraid, how to catch the ball and get tackled without it hurting. And I wanted to do what they did, and I was able to do it because I was well.
Wow. That really taught you how to observe
Yes,
and in a very intensive way and reflect.
yes.
So why do people think that they're coming to you?
I I think people hear about the work that we do in our center, and they're curious. But a lot of people have been putting up with conditions that have handcuffed them. And there's hope and there's possibilities on an alternative way, maybe a little different way, because we still network with traditional doctors, and about 40% of the clients that come to me have been referred by medical doctors now, because the
Oh,
word is,
wow.
yeah, the word is advertisement, word of mouth is the best. I don't advertise anywhere, not in any
Right, right.
newspaper, just people telling people, and that makes a difference.
But what are you really doing? I mean, what is the underlying source of our lack of well-being and the common thread that you're really addressing?
At a very deep level, I'm touching their hearts. The heart is the root of the challenge. And so, in the modalities that we use, and we also do assist them in the conversation of how can they transform their life. Like you got to want to make that shift, and you have to look towards what's preferred. So we're helping them get clear about it. Once you do, like have your reason why you want to be here, then you have motivation enough to change. Now we also have to work with behaviors and patterns. And so we coach along those things to help them with their commitments. Sometimes we actually create coaches, where accountability coaches, where you have someone to talk to. Um, and we do group work. I remember you were part of the mind management program, and you certainly taught me some things rolling out your program. It was a faster way of doing the mind management. I want to give you kudos for that. But having those group sessions where you're with a partner and you can talk about similar things, that is very important.
Hmm. Hmm.
You're not alone.
So, a lot of health conditions um, are maybe not caused, but are really impacted by someone's emotional health and their circumstances.
Yes,
So, is that why you are also looking at how to balance that in their life?
exactly. According to the New England Journal of Medicine, about 95% of all doctors' visits are stress related. And so we know that people have been internalizing stress for a long time, especially in this economy that we live in now. Day to day, it's like a roller coaster. Where I work, and there's CDC headquarters, and at least two-thirds of the people that came to me, because they're no longer coming because they've been laid off. So we're hoping to do some group support systems for them. It's stress,
Wow,
mental stress, financial stress, emotional stress, and that impacts the physical.
awesome.
Yeah.
So, why is it so hard uh, to describe alternative medicine and to make it concrete?
Well, Big Pharma has a control over sort of the history of Western medicine. Traditionally, there was nothing but natural medicine. Before there
Mhm.
was pharmaceutical companies, people could take herbs. They learned from the Native American Indians and indigenous people things like wheatgrass and yellow root. And these were just customs of our time. There were medicine women and medicine men. And then pharmaceuticals companies took over. The little mom and pop herb shops sort of went into the twilight zone. So that has changed the industry greatly in terms of natural
Yeah.
medicine.
You combine a lot of different modalities. I mean, the depth of what you've studied, and all these modalities is mind blowing, really. I remember when I came to you and said that I was going through the change
Yes,
and I was having some hot flashes. You gave me a pill. Well, that pill was a Chinese herb.
yes.
And within just a few days, it was gone. And I never experienced another symptom of the change of life.
Hmm.
It was amazing. I was going, what is everybody, talking about? I
Hmm.
didn't have a problem.
Yeah. Well, with that, acupuncture and Chinese herbs, which are 5,000 years old, these remedies, it's it's it has its own wisdom in balancing out the estrogen and progesterone levels of your body. And you were
Mhm.
motivated too. You were working out, you were practicing Qigong, and you had the right mental attitude to continuously balance that fire energy. So the herbs were just cooling your mind and your spirit, but not like a mystical way, but just balancing the emotional
Yeah.
edge.
I was definitely motivated because I was trying to survive. I
Yes,
mean, after caregiving, wow.
yes.
So let's talk a little bit about some of the therapies.
I remember you having a lot of grief, the loss of your father. And that touched
Yeah.
me because I had never met anyone that did what you did. I mean, most people put their parents in a home, but you were day to day. I mean, the grind. You did the heavy lifting. You were there, but that's love right there. It was nothing but love. So it was easy to tap into that strength that you had and then help redirect that energy so that you could recover, repair, and regenerate your spirit.
I think grief and loss are the conditions under which you can do some powerful transformation because one, you're more open when you feel vulnerable. And two, when you're open, you start questioning, like, why am I here? What is my purpose? Those meaning of life questions. And so it's a very creative place to be. And what so many people do when they're in that void, they try to get busy, you know,
Yes.
and they try to fill it up as fast as they can. And they're missing this huge opportunity. They need to be able to sit with it and gain insight from it and just be with it, you know? So let's talk a little bit about some of the therapies that are very concrete and many which can be done remotely, like the AO scanner that we talked about that's used in space. Tell us
Mhm.
about that.
Well, the AL scanner is technology that manages astronauts, and this technology is so powerful that we can find out if there's any allergies. We can find out if there's any imbalances in your neurotransmitters, your GABA, dopamine, serotonin, cortisol, ACTH, PEA. We can find out even blood sugar just using this scanner. Yes, and I use it every day. And it has the ability to even do remote work. So,
Yeah. So caregivers can suffer from, among other things, a type of PTSD. That's one of the reasons I think why it's so important to do an ongoing maintenance program and to be proactive instead of suffering like I did.
mhm.
And in fact, caregivers really need a daily routine. So let's talk about why it's important to do a daily routine and what to do about it.
What I notice about caretakers, and this is just a general statement, is that they're so engaged in supporting others that they lose the ability to care for themselves. And that's the Achilles heel. That's the hole in the bottom of the bucket. The the client needs so much help. You're not at the end of the rope in most cases, caregivers. And there's oftentimes not enough money to take care of themselves. Most caregivers that I know are sacrificing a lot to care for others. And just what I see in the industry, there's not a lot of support for caregivers, so oftentimes they just burn out.
Mm-hmm. That's so true. And that's why I'm doing to change that experience for the caregiver,
Yes.
because they are, in my opinion, the key to better outcomes for everybody
Mhm.
concerned. So let's start with the basics, Mark. First, what is energy?
Well, energy in terms of consciousness are thoughts. Your thinking creates a physical image that manifests into a concrete idea. Computer, glasses, headphones were all thought forms. So the thoughts that we think day to day are making the cells of our body because that's energy, along with the food we eat and along with the air we breathe. Those things are making something called chi. And being in harmony with others and thinking the right things create a mental health that is actually stabilizing us. But when we sacrifice ourselves beyond limits where we're not as healthy as we can be in the mind, heart, and spirit, that's when I notice people have diseases.
Right. And part of the routine that I ask them to build is to empty their cup every day,
Mhm.
to start the day with a clean slate, to let go of everything
Oh,
and
that is
to
so
just
good.
surrender, you
That
know.
is so good. I know for myself, I'm a caregiver. I work in that capacity, taking care of people. So at
That's
night,
right.
I breathe into my heart and then just let go of all the stress by blowing out. So I breathe in for 4, hold for 4, and blow out for 6. In doing
Imagine,
that, that
imagine if you didn't let go of all the suffering that people gave you during the day.
yes, yeah, and I'm present to the fact that I don't really heal anything. I can't heal anyone. I'm just the facilitator that's supporting them in healing their lives. I'm really good at listening and I'm really good at getting them when they're ready to connect to their own inner wisdom so that inner wisdom can help them heal. The
Yeah,
healer's
that's
inside of all of us.
that's what, to me, the daily routine is all about. You know, by using several modalities, there's just this slow awakening that happens that wakes up this inner wisdom, you
Yes.
know? Yeah. Um, so what is Qigong and how does it work? And why is Qigong known for its strong healing power beyond just the physical movements? I mean, people have seen an improvement in diabetes, And also tell us what you've witnessed over time with your patients that are practicing Qigong.
Well, Qigong is an ancient science of movement and breath. So Qigong is actually earlier than Tai Chi Chuang. It's very, very old. And anytime you attach your mindfulness to what you're doing, you're practicing Qigong. Now, the benefits you mentioned are phenomenal. Not only is it beneficial for the joints because the exercises are very subtle and moving with breath and moving energy into each and every area that you're focusing on. And doing that simple exercises actually begins to reverse the aging process. It's able to lower the blood pressure, able to help with cholesterol, as well as overall support with diabetes, arthritis, and all inflammatory diseases. And there have been lots of studies in the National Health Institute on the history of Qigong and the benefits. And most people don't start practicing Qigong until they have a reason to. So I make it mandatory for my clients to come to a Saturday class so that they can learn how to take care of themselves.
Oh, I know about that.
Hmm.
I remember
I
that,
don't
and
think you ever missed a class when you were in town.
I love that. And one of the things that I remember most is uh, the incredible music
Yeah.
during meditation.
Hmm.
But it was amazing. And it was also very community building,
Yes.
which I think you are a community builder. You are a community healer, Mark, in the way that you approach what you're doing. You reach out and put your arms around the whole community.
Well, that's important because we're all interconnected. And I remember in your qigong class there was the psychologists who work with children and
Hmm.
the pharmacists, and then there were you, this big wonderful entrepreneur and caretaker. I think you were launching Rockets of Desires about doing that work for the seniors. Even just back in the day, you were ahead of your time. And having a community that supports you is also one that helps you heal.
Hmm.
That being around my granddad made me know that when I go home, I need to give up the chocolate, the McDonald's, because every Friday for rewards, we would get a chocolate shake, a hamburger, French fries, and by Monday, I'm wheezing.
Yeah, I mean, when I came to Greece, I had an autoimmune disorder that was kind of new, vitiglia.
Yes.
And after 4 or 5 years of being here, it's gone. And I believe it's because of you don't eat anything here that's not local or not in season. And everything comes right out of the ocean yesterday or from the farmer's garden.
Yes.
These gardens are local. There's no supply chain, 10,000 miles away. And I mean, we're living the Mediterranean diet. And it's amazing. There's no processed food here. And a tomato tastes like a tomato.
Wow.
And when I ate my first orange here, which we have orange trees in the yard, when I ate my first orange here, I went, oh, wow. I, I don't think I've ever had an orange like this before in my life. So it's amazing. And I think food can really change your life.
Food is medicine. The herbs that we
Yeah.
use, they're all plant-based, and we're talking about the life forces in nature.
Hmm.
It's in nature. And anytime you can stick with herbs and seeds, We had we have seedless watermelons now, and there's a
Yeah,
big
there's none of
difference
that.
between the two. There's none of that there.
There's none of that here.
Huh?
No. I mean, if you go into a store in the States and they're out of something, you go, "Hey, I'm not coming back here." You complain to the manager. Here, it's like, people run out of stuff all the time because it's not sitting on the shelf.
Right.
Um, so you mentioned chi before, life force. Tell us a little bit more about that and how do we cultivate it and how does it help us?
Everyone is born with a certain frequency, if you will, and it can be measured. It can be seen in the eyes. You can see and feel a person's vitality, right? Well, we can measure all that, and that is chi. That's energy that they have. And so the person's energy and their state of mind, along with the healer and music, which is frequencies and sound, raising the vibration inside the body's core. A good soundtrack can bring all kinds of emotions, elicit a certain feeling, like the Rocky music, it makes you go to war, versus Beethoven, which is going to bring you into a meditative state. That's healing. That's Qigong. And that's part of what is happening when you practice that, whether you're walking along the beach or on the grass or in the mountains or near trees. There's all this magnetic energy, Schumann's principles, at the sole of your feet, resonating through your body, through the energetic systems of your body, revitalizing you. It can be measured.
You know, it's really funny because one of the things that I did religiously was I walked on the Chattahoochee,
Yes,
and the water, there
yes.
was something about flowing water that fed me,
Mhm.
and also something about just being on the dirt instead of concrete. And so as I walked through the trees and the roots and right by the water, I felt so nurtured and revitalized. I used to take a tape recorder with me and just record all of my thoughts and everything, and I would just go on and on and on and on. I called the Chattahoochee Nature Center my office.
Yes. See what you were doing, you were cultivating the chi, the
Mm.
life force. You're talking water, you're looking at
Yeah.
nature, you're moving in the rhythm of walking. So the
I felt
85%,
aligned.
the total alignment with your
Yeah.
nature and with your thoughts and with your belief. You were
Hmm.
healing your life. That's
Yeah.
practicing Qigong. That's
Yeah.
mindfulness.
I don't think you can do one thing. That was one thing that I did among many things.
Oh, yes.
So, what is tapping? We did a lot of tapping in your office.
Yes.
And what does it do?
Well, tapping was developed by a guy named Robert Callahan, and he found out that there are places in the body that hold stress. And just by simply defragging these points would open up energy to flow through your body in such a way that it would release the stress. And by hitting these points and tapping on these simple systems
Hmm.
could release the blockages that we
Hmm.
hold in our thought forms. Yes, and it's gone. People are using it even in elementary school. Instead of a child being put in timeout, they're describing how they feel and releasing the stress so they can get back in the game and begin learning again versus pouting. My niece is 9 years old and she knows how to tap.
That's amazing.
I'm so excited because instead of like being stuck in the energy of upset or disappointment, you have a way of immediately letting it go without even bringing attention to it. Like I just tapped and I hit
Mhm.
all those points without even anybody noticing me.
That's amazing. I mean,
Yes.
to teach kids how to do that and then for them to move into a completely different, you know, state of being or mind because of that. I can
Now,
see that.
that's why holistic medicine is so important because it's not just a clinical thing, it is
Mhm.
a life thing. Think about it, a 9-year-old girl knowing how to soothe some of these emotions that are only going to escalate and having a tool to bring her back into coherence, a unified state of mind.
I mean, you say a state of mind, and it's really, to me, all of this brings you into a different state of being.
Oh, yeah. It's like Bach remedies, flower essence
Yeah.
from the petals have an emotional calming on the body. Primarin has a tremendous impact on hot flashes. Dong Quai, an herb that's used for thousands of years, is the queen of all female herbs in the herbal kingdom, will balance out the spirit of anxiety and help with mood. It's just nature.
So this state of being, to me, is something that, I mean, we can call it chi, we can call it a lot of things, life force, but it's really nurturing a different state of being, which comes from the inside.
Yes,
It's not something that, what we do is we want a pill, or we want this or, whatever. It's not something that somebody else can do for us. It's something that someone can facilitate
yes.
us to do for ourselves, but it's not something from the outside. It's something that we have to take responsibility for and cultivate
I
through all
love
these
the
different
idea of
practices.
taking responsibility because to me it's so easy to be given this life that we've been given. And we have this gift every single day to live in a state of purpose, to make the planet better, to make our families better, our communities better. And it's our gift to be here.
You say a state of purpose, and really a state of purpose is where your focus is. If your focus is based on what you can do in the world, what you can do to change something, whether it's small or big, versus what's wrong and, a resentment, which completely puts you in a state of being a victim.
Mhm.
And from that place, you can't change anything because your focus is on the wrong thing. So every time you change your focus to what can I do instead of what's wrong, um, it's powerful.
It is.
Changes everything.
Joe Dispenza says a brain that's wired together will fire together. So if you're thinking the wrong thoughts, you're going to fire the wrong intention. And it's so easy to change that thought and choose what you want. That's really what we're doing with health, along with choices of what you're going to eat to maintain and drinking clean water and cutting out the alcohol and making your body, mind, spirit as healthy as you can. And you'll change
Yeah.
in less than 3 months completely.
And what I found is that if you just create this routine, you don't even have to understand how it works. If you just do it, if
That
you
part,
just do it,
that part right said, just do it.
if you just do it and just observe the changes,
Mhm.
then It's really amazing. You don't have to try. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to even understand it. If you just do it, these things will kind of unfold
Yes.
before you, and you just acknowledge it. What's happening?
I have a couple people going away to school in the fall. The summer solstice is here, and people are making decisions for the new year. And so I had this young lady who was cutting. Her mother didn't even see it because she wears sleeves all the time. And we were able to get her in a state of mind of by teaching her this tapping technique. And here's the part that was really interesting. About 25 years ago, her mother was driving in the car and there was an accident. And the grandfather didn't have a seatbelt in and was thrown through the window. So the grandmother and the daughter wished that they had left instead of him. When the mother gave birth, she had that grief and that thought. And guess what the little girl picked up on?
Mm.
I wish I had died instead of being here. And we were able to get her
Mhm.
to change that thought to the point where now she's thriving and excited about her future. Because sometimes, Lee, as you know, it's really deep inside. It's how we were raised and the thoughts around the people that
Right.
influences someone who is just that young. She's 19, soon to be 20, and going away to school.
As you know, I have a lot of processes around uncovering what those
Yes,
false beliefs are, and
yes,
then simply asking, is that true?
yes,
And then as an adult, you go, no, that's not true.
right.
And it's incredibly freeing. And you look at what it's cost you in life
Hmm.
to have this belief, this limitation,
Hmm.
and then you all of a sudden all these options become open to you because
Hmm.
you don't have that false belief anymore. You know, it could have been driving you your whole life.
It was driving her, and it wasn't even her belief.
Right, right. So, a lot of times we wait for an illness to do something. I think you said that as well. So maybe we exercise, but maybe there's something more to a sense of well-being. Uh, shouldn't we, in fact, be strategic and proactive about well-being? I mean, how can we make well-being more concrete for people? And what happens if we don't do that in our lives?
Mainstream has an opportunity. Platforms such as this are great opportunities, teaching people those basic things like my niece knows at 9. It's hard a way of getting up in the morning and giving thanks and a way of going to bed and being grateful and releasing it so that you can program your mind on how truth really works and the universe is supporting you, teaching people that. And what we need to do is open up more opportunities to have the conversations, the kind of work that you do to get people to ask, is that true? Uh, I have a feeling that this is why we're here, is to be that clarion call to people to wake up because we have to. If we really are down the wrong path, if we stay stuck in a limited belief.
Right.
But if we open up just a little bit to let in what you asked me when we did that work, is that true? And I found that some things were not true. And then, since that wasn't true, then what could we choose and
Hmm.
create? That's powerful work.
And what a waste. I mean, what are we doing here? You know, and what can you do in your life when you're focused on what can you contribute?
Everyone has something that's very unique, and it's just
Exactly.
helping to discover that. Some folks are really good at writing, and others are really great at math, and some people are really empathic and they can understand and empathize and be supportive.
Right. So, isn't well-being about increasing our resilience? That means when we get hit by a life storm, like
Mhm,
caregiving or
mhm,
any other hardship where we're emotionally devastated, how do we recover?
mhm.
And what do we learn? What insights do we gain?
I,
And
I, I
and and
like the
how?
idea. I like the idea of going inward.
Mhm.
Most of the time we go outward, we project onto others. My life is because of government or because of this person. When really it might just be an opportunity for us to take a deep look at ourselves and ask these great, profound questions. How do I want
Yeah.
my life to be? And then choose that. But it's not going to happen overnight. It may not happen in a year or two, but you're going to feel better because you started some movement. And over time, that effort is going to change
Mhm.
everything.
I think that exercise about victimhood, even if you're really successful, you can still clean out the nooks and crannies where you
Yes,
have that thought.
yes.
And wherever you have that thought, then you are not able to change anything, you
Hmm.
know? So it's kind of maintenance item right there.
Yeah. In Qigong, we work on worry, we work on fear, anger, and grief, and the heart. If you can get
Well,
to the heart, you can heal anything.
there's so many aspects of emotional and spiritual health that need support. And, like we talked about, it has to be cultivated from the inside to
Hmm.
be lasting and to build that resilience that we need when life takes an unexpected turn. So, Mark, how does trauma affect us short term and long term?
Now, trauma requires a deep seated effort to change. Trauma could be physical, it could be mental, it could be emotional, it could be psychological. And all of those areas you would have to really work with support to overcome. But trauma is an opportunity too, especially if you see it as a gift. Like some people, their lives change as a result of a trauma. They actually go back to school, they get an education, they end up going into that area and helping others. So we can use it as a motivator. But it all comes with the spirit, the mind, and aligning to what's possible. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think trauma is neither good or bad, it's how we handle it. But everybody goes through some trauma, especially when you lose someone. Your life could be turned upside down. That could be very traumatic. But how do
Yeah.
you handle it? Do you take medications the rest of your life? Could do that. That's
Mhm.
not going to heal it. Could
That's
you
the question I
exercise?
ask a lot is what is this going to mean in your life?
Yes.
Because it can mean something great or it can mean something devastating.
Yes.
And it's up to you.
Yes. Yes. That's the key is
Mhm.
setting with it, just being with it, and then really creating a way around the trauma to get to the inside of your core so that you can see what you want to do with this.
Yeah, that's that's perfect. So summarize for us, Mark, what your goal is in your therapies.
That's a good question. My goal is to help the client transform their life so that the situations they've been putting up with clear up like the process of life itself. That's what I'm doing. No matter what it is, we're going to set with this and figure it out so that we can transform it for your highest and greatest good. It's a gift. Let's look at it like a gift and then go after it with your life, and it will change.
Yeah, exactly. So, Mark, you helped me through one of the hardest times in my life. But you also gave me something as time went on after my father died. And I was trying to make sense of it all, like what we're talking about. What was it going to mean? And you believed in me even before I wrote the first word. You didn't have to see the finished product before I felt your full support. And that meant the world to me. I mean, your encouragement helped to fuel my path forward when I could have just as easily imploded, maybe even permanently. So thank you, Mark.
Namaste. Thank you, Lee. You were a blessing to me. And while you were walking that journey, there were aspects of me that were grieving and learning from you and asking those questions that you asked me. You know, I use that today even with my clients. I need to take another refresher course and get certified by you. But you have some real talents that you learn along the way, some real
Anytime,
blessings.
anytime. You can find Dr. Mark Armstrong at the Ahimke Center in Atlanta, Georgia, or you can work with him remotely from wherever you are. This is just the first of a series of talks we'll be having with Dr. Mark, breaking it down, the mystery of inner harmony and well-being, something we could all use a little more of, or maybe a lot. See you next time.
Thank you, Lee. That was fun.